Welcome back. It's good to see you. Welcome to episode 116 of Dank Times Danker Thoughts with me, Angelo. Still in a pretty dark place since last Friday, of course. The decision to curtail Roe v. Wade and make it up to states' rights for abortion, basically ruining women's lives in this country, taking away their equality, taking away their choice, and putting guns and the Bible above actual people. And it set me off a pretty dark weekend. So I had plans with the friends that were moving to California. I think I talked a little bit about it on the pod. They got canceled. I had a date get canceled. And then on Monday when I was working, I was in such a dire strait almost. I was just feeling so down in the dumps and angry and judgmental. I thought just violent things, not towards myself, but towards others. And I just wasn't in a good headspace. So I finished my work for the day and I took the rest of the week off as kind of a staycation / sanity checkup because I need it. I need it. I keep talking to family members and friends about abortion and I'm just getting so worked up. And I see what politicians are trying to do to either be an advocate or to continue the downhill slide into right-wing extremism, the Christian Taliban. Do we want to follow that or do we want to choose to have hope and choose to fight back? Well, I was sure hoping that since we have a Democrat president and a Democrat for now controlled Congress, that surely there's an action plan because we knew this was coming. The leaked draft was over a month and a half ago. Surely the Biden administration would have planned for something, would have had a contingency plan, something, a blueprint, something. Well, folks, it's now Wednesday, so we're 5 days after, and not a goddamn thing has been proposed. Yes, there's mourning and anger and rancor, and yeah, there's people yelling about what should be done, but the President of the United States, he just bemoans the decision. The court is losing all credibility. The court is now extreme, blah, blah, blah. So, okay, Joe, what are you proposing to do? Well, I don't really know. I don't really have a plan. So you had no idea what to do. You had over a month to prepare, and you don't know what the fuck you're going to do. Are you going to expand the Supreme Court? No, he's against that. Are you going to threaten them with expulsion, impeachment? No, it doesn't sound like that's going to happen. Well, are you going to sign an executive order? No, it doesn't look like we're going to do that. Well, are you going to try to codify what rights women and LGBTQ and basically anyone who's not a white Christian? Are you going to do codifying bills or something to protect everyone else? Well, we'll see what happens. Okay, well, what the fuck are you going to do? Well, it's okay, Angelo. Pelosi's going to read a fucking poem. What the fuck? The Democratic leadership is totally inept. They are ill-prepared. They don't know what to do with the power they have. With all this internal squabbling, we're never going to do anything that's going to help in the midterms unless something dire happens. And you would think that between Roe v. Wade getting struck down, the January 6th committee, which I'm going to go into a little later because there was some bombshells by an aide to Meadows. And with everything that's happening in the country with these far-right evangelical Taliban Al-Qaeda motherfuckers, that the Democrats should be able to at least stumble their way through and hold on to Congress. But you look at what they're trying to run on. It's like, Jesus Christ, you can't just run on fear. You have to give them something. And we voted them in time and time again. The amount of times I've been told in the last 12 years that you have to vote because democracy and freedom is on the line. Well, okay, we've done that. I voted for Obama. I voted for Hillary. I voted for Joe. What the fuck has happened? We couldn't codify abortion. The military budget has skyrocketed. We don't have universal health care. We keep giving money to Israel and Saudi Arabia for fucking genocides. What the fuck? At least the Republicans are out in the open with their evilness, their coldness, and just voidness towards anything outside of corporations and rich white people. That is it. That's all the Republicans care about. Companies, corporations, and billionaires and Christians. That's all they care about. They don't give a fuck about anything else, and they don't lie about it. You almost have to respect them, that they're just open and brazen with their ill will. Whereas the Democrats, I mean, they just run into each other like a bunch of blind toddlers. I mean, Jesus Christ. If there's any time for us to become one party and do what the Republicans do, get in a room and say, I don't give a fuck about your disagreements, get them out now behind closed doors, but out in the open, we are all on one message, regardless if you're a moderate, a progressive, a capitalist, who the fuck cares? We are all going to be on the same page here. And the Democrats just can't do it because they think they're special and entitled to people's votes that really they're not. I mean, when I was growing up, I was taught that basically if you were a man or woman or genderless person of color, you're going to vote Democrat. And that's just not the case. You look what's been happening with the Democrats losing Hispanic votes, the Asian votes are going down. And if it's not for black women and the black men who are allowed to vote in this racist country, the Democrats would never win an election again. How could they? They don't know how to stay on message. They want to stay on brand, but they don't want to stay on message. So it's just disgusting. I'm going to play something that Crystal Ball said that perfectly sums up how I feel about this whole thing.
And that's where this just completely breaks down. And there have been AOC and Elizabeth Warren, I think, have been sort of the most aggressive in kind of calling out the inaction on the Democratic side, and the fact that the first reaction from Democrats, from Pelosi in particular, we're going to talk about this a little bit more later, was like to send out a fundraising email, chip in your $15 now to send more Democrats in the House. It's like people who are liberals feel like, we already did this. We gave you a trifecta. We already went and voted for you multiple times, not to mention going back to the Obama era when we voted you in with a supermajority. You said this was important and you didn't do shit about it. And it's just so incredibly undeniable, not to mention that, you know, just in the past couple of weeks, Democratic leadership went to the mat for an anti-choice lawmaker, Henry Cuellar, down in Texas, pulling him across the finish line by a couple of hundred votes. And then you have the nerve to turn around and say, like, oh, you've got to elect more of us. You got to trust us, and we're really fighting for you, when the evidence just is not there that they actually mean that on this issue or many other issues, by the way.
I could not have put it more eloquently because I'm too stoned and I'm jacked up on caffeine. But it's also her job is to sound more intelligent than the common man, which I don't think there's more common son of a bitch than your boy right here. But yeah, I mean, they're campaigning on this and asking for donations. Like, that is, you know, that their right to equality, their right to freedom should not be a fundraising opportunity. And AOC put out, in my estimation, a brilliant strategy here. So let me pull this up. She put this on Twitter, I think over the weekend. Here's how the Dems can and must do more than just wait for an election. Let's start with why. 7 of the 9 justices were appointed by a party that hasn't won a popular vote more than once in 30 years, and one of those seats was stolen. She, of course, is referring to the time Mitch McConnell refused Obama a Supreme Court vote. Several of the existing lied to Congress to secure their appointment. That's Gorsuch and Kavanaugh. One justice's family, Clarence Thomas's, was paid by right-wing groups for years, and he never disclosed it, violating federal law. Same justice's spouse participated in January 6th, and he used his SCOTUS seat to vote to keep potential info related to his wife from investigators in Congress. 2 justices stand very credibly accused of sexual assault, and that's the tip of the iceberg. Election or not, the Supreme Court has a legitimacy crisis, and the public reaffirms it. 75% of the U.S. public reports lacking confidence in SCOTUS, and those numbers were pre-Roe ruling. In a legitimate crisis, the solution Biden and the Democratic leaders must offer can't just be one of voting, but of statute and authority. Compared to the executive and legislative branch, checks on court overreach and misconduct are little to none. We've covered that on this podcast before. Leaders must share their plans for Roe and a rogue court. Past presidents, from Lincoln to FDR, understood the dangerous stakes of allowing an unchecked court overreach its authority and threaten our democracy. Lincoln ignored the court to issue the Emancipation Proclamation. FDR, in the plunges of the Great Depression, also sought to confront the court structure and core gerontocracy problem of lifetime appointments via public appeal. While he did not succeed, that check came from the people and Congress, not the Supreme Court. The ruling is Roe, but the crisis is democracy. Leaders must share specific plans for both. The president and Democratic leaders can no longer get away with familiar tactics of committees and studies to avoid tackling our crisis head-on anymore. We must restrain judicial review. We must open clinics on federal lands, court expansion, expand federal access awareness of pills, abortions, etc. For the moments when we do insist on elections, we must be precise with what we need and what we will do with that power. How many seats does that party need to codify Roe? Dems say that not just go vote or give us $6 to win. That is demoralizing, losing, unfocused nonsense. Oh, preach, baby girl. Democratic leaders must tell voters the plan. What's the actual need? Which specific seats are we focused on? What votes do we need and where? What states and what races? And what's the return? What is Biden and Congress actually willing and able to do at a 52 or 60 seats? Be honest. Details motivate. So let's wake up, everybody. What's good, Democrats? If you don't like what I've laid out here, then please present your plan instead of little why can't lists. Let's cut the hand-wringing and get moving. Chop, chop. No more show tunes till November unless it's for Go TV. I don't get that one. But she's absolutely right. I mean, that sets out a pretty basic, common sense, easy to understand and follow game plan. You must be upfront and you must have the leaders of the Democratic Party speaking directly to the American people and call out the mansions, call out the cinemas, call out the Republican governors who are trying to gerrymander a state and take away their citizens' right to vote. Call out the Taliban Christians, the Marjorie Taylor Greens, Lauren Bobberts, the Matt Gaetzes. All of those scum must be held accountable. Names must be talked about. Yes, Fox News will run away with it, saying, oh, look, they're calling people out specifically like a fascist, Nazi, whatever, like they did back in Germany. But guess what? The Republicans are already doing that. They have been. So you have to fight fire with fire at this point because democracy has failed. I don't know how anyone of like mind can look at it any other way. And I just want to say again, this whole Roe v. Wade thing, it's not about being pro-life. Because if we had a pro-life Republican Party, truly pro-life, we would get free health care. You would get paid maternity time off. You would have the freedom to do what you want when it comes to contraceptives or the pill or whatever you want to do. But that they're not pro-life. Pro-life politicians would be horrified at the state of the education system, which, you could make a decent argument that a bad education system ends up killing students down the road. Because once they become teenagers or they become young adults, hey, if the system is broke and the economy is shit around them and their home life is trash because they're probably living in a poor shithole, then they're going to get probably addicted to some drug or commit crimes or do whatever. It happens all the time. And you can't hope the military is going to save them because sometimes they come out of the military worse than when they went in. So I don't want to hear this shit. The fact that schools are still shaming poor children when it comes to school lunch debt, I mean, it's ridiculous. If it was about babies, we'd have excellent and free universal maternal care. You wouldn't be charged a cent to give birth, no matter how complicated your delivery was. If it was about babies, we'd have months and months of parental leave for everyone. If it was about babies, we'd have free lactation consultants, free diapers, free formula. If it was about babies, we'd have free and excellent childcare from newborns on. If it was about babies, we'd have universal preschool and pre-K and guaranteed after-school placements. Not to mention, if it was about babies, we would have strict gun laws and an AR-15s would be illegal in most states until you're, 21 or some shit? Because this is sidetracking of the Roe v. Wade abortion issue. But when it comes to guns, because yes, we finally did pass some major baby steps, but still major, God, how sad this country is, legislation putting on some gun laws in this country, which, hey, it's a step in the right direction. It's nowhere near far enough. But I've kind of curtailed my thought process about AR-15s because I believe in some states, you kind of want an AR-15 if you live in the middle of nowhere. But if you're living in a city, do you really need an AR-15? I think if you live in a suburbs or a city and you buy an AR-15, you're automatically on a watch list. Now, if you buy an AR-15 and you live in bumfuck Alaska or Montana or some shit, well then, odds are you probably need it because you're literally surrounded by nature that can kill you at a drop of a hat. But anyway, back to this. If it was truly about babies, yes, I do believe we'd have stricter gun laws. We would have better funded education about the body, because I'm 35 and there's still a lot of shit about the female anatomy that confuses the fuck out of me. And I know that I was never taught really what happens during menstruation or during pregnancy. What exactly does all that mean? What the exactly is a fallopian tube? You know, shit like that. So, yeah, it's not about the babies. It's not about being pro-life. It's just that the radical Taliban Christians have taken over the governing structure of this land, even though they probably have 25% support. Maybe that, maybe. And I think that's on a high estimation. So where do we go from here, people? There was some promising primary results the other day. A lot of pro-Trump people lost. Some won. In fact, an actual Nazi in Illinois, she won. I mean, this bitch was talking very nicely about Adolf Hitler. And when Roe v. Wade was struck down, she tweeted, "This is a win for white women." Then, of course, a couple hours later, she came back and said, "Oops, I meant all women." You know, she is a literal Nazi. If you are speaking fondly of Hitler and his plans and are openly against women's right to choose, get anything to do with gay rights, and you're very pro-gun, I'm sorry, but that seems very Nazi-ish to me. At very least, you're a Nazi light. And I think her name is Mary Hill or some shit. Let me see here. I'll tell you her name. Illinois Nazi. Representative Mary Miller. That is who won in Illinois. So, she's one fly in the ointment, to put it mildly, but there is progress being made. So, do I think that more people are going to vote blue because of the Roe v. Wade? Yeah. Do I think it's going to be enough to stop the massacre that's going to happen in the midterms? At this point, no. Because like AOC called out, we don't have a fucking plan by Democratic leadership besides reading a fucking poem and using it and using this debacle to raise money. So no, as of now, what day is it? June 29th. I don't think the Democrats are going to be able to do anything with this, really giving them the win on a silver platter, because the Republicans are just going to not even address it because they know if they talk about it, they're going to get their asses whooped in the primary. So I don't know, people. I'm trying to put a good spin on something here. And I think that if the Democratic leadership follows what the AOCs of the world have proposed, Bernie Sanders has laid out a good plan. Elizabeth Warren, to her credit, has as well. But again, the actual Democratic leadership, Schumer, Pelosi, Biden, and Kamala Harris, they offered us nothing. They released a strategy to the public. I think that at least would be a step in the right direction. And before we mercifully end this abortion topic here, I want to read where we are in terms of recent history. U.S. joins only 3 other countries that have rolled back abortion rights since 1994. And then there is a map of the world and showing the abortion laws around the world. And whew, our enemies right now, Russia, they allow abortions on request. Oh, God. We're worse than Russia. With the Friday Supreme Court decision overturning Roe v. Wade, the U.S. joined only 3 other countries, El Salvador, Nicaragua, and Poland, that have rolled back abortion rights since 1994, according to the Center for Reproductive Rights. Nearly 60 countries have liberalized their abortion laws, though some only incrementally, over the last 25 years. The rollback of abortion rights has come in countries where democracies have eroded, said Margaret Harpin, a legal advisor at the Center for Reproductive Rights, which advocates for abortion right advocacy and tracks abortion laws worldwide. At the same time, we've seen a considerable amount of change in recent years and an overall global trend towards liberalization of abortion laws, Harpin told Axios before the Supreme Court decision. Here's a look at current abortion laws worldwide, according to the research from the Center for Reproductive Rights. Abortion is banned altogether. About 91 million women of reproductive age live in about 24 countries or territories that prohibit abortion under all circumstances. El Salvador, Nicaragua, Honduras, Malta, Dominican Republic, Egypt, Haiti, Iraq, Madagascar, Nicaragua, the Philippines, Senegal, and some country named Suriname, I don't know. El Salvador has some of the strictest abortion laws in the world. At least 180 women have been prosecuted for abortion or aggravated homicide after having obstetric emergency, such as a miscarriage or a stillbirth. After public pressure, some of these women have been released in recent years, though many remain in prison serving decades-long sentences. So Texas, you have that to look forward to. Nicaragua implemented a total ban in 2006. Honduras, which banned abortion under any circumstances since 1985, hardened its abortion law last year by adding an amendment to the Constitution, making it harder to change the ban in the future. Malta is the only European Union member state to ban abortions with no exceptions. So, good Christ, we now have too much in common with El Salvador, Nicaragua, Honduras, Malta, Dominican Republic, Egypt, Haiti, Iraq, Madagascar, Nicaragua, the Philippines, Senegal, and Suriname. And I'm pretty sure America has bombed some of those countries in the past. Abortion is permitted to save a woman's life. 42 countries or territories allow abortions to save a pregnant person's life. Chile currently falls into this category, but as the country drafts a new constitution, there are indicators it may include reproductive rights. Other countries on this list include Bahrain, Guatemala, Kiribati, Lebanon, Libya, Malawi, Myanmar, Nigeria, Oman, South Sudan, Tanzania, and Uganda. Abortion is permitted to preserve health. Nearly 50 countries or territories allow abortion for health or therapeutic reasons. Health is sometimes specified to include physical and/or mental health. Poland, where a large portion of the population identifies as Catholic, is among the countries that have rolled back abortion rights in recent years. Abortion is allowed in cases of rape, incest, or if there's a risk to a woman's health or life, but it is almost impossible for those eligible for a legal abortion to obtain one, according to Amnesty International. Other countries in this category include Algeria, Bolivia, Botswana, Burundi, Cameroon, Costa Rica, Djibouti, Ecuador, Kuwait, Morocco, Pakistan, Peru, Saudi Arabia, Togo, and Zimbabwe. Abortion is permitted on broad social or economic grounds. 13 countries or territories allow abortion under a broad range of circumstances. Some also provide exceptions in case of rape, incest, fetal impairment, or on other grounds. Those countries are often considered a woman's actual or reasonably foreseeable environment and her social or economic circumstances in considering the potential impact of pregnancy and childbearing. Among the countries on this list are Ethiopia, Finland, India, Rwanda, Taiwan, and Zambia. Some countries that allow abortion to save a woman's life to preserve health and on broad social and economic grounds may also have exceptions for cases of rape, incest, fetal impairment, and/or other circumstances. Just to clarify that. Abortion is permitted on request. However, gestational limits vary. At least 75 countries allow abortion on request, with varying gestational limits. The most common gestational period is 12 weeks. But Harpin points out in many countries, particularly in Europe, offer legal protections for abortions beyond that limit and/or other broad exceptions. Colombia this year decriminalized abortion. Abortion became legal in Argentina last year. Ireland legalized it in 2018. South Korea, New Zealand, and other nations have also liberalized their abortion laws in recent years. And it's also important to keep in mind, a country's laws don't always accurately reflect the reality on the ground. Costs, geography, healthcare, and other factors can limit access, as they have often done in the United States. So what is going to happen to the U.S. without Roe? without Roe in place, states can legally regulate or ban abortion, which has already happened. More than a dozen states have trigger laws in effect that make abortion illegal shortly after the ruling, and several more are certain or likely to ban abortion in the near future, according to the Guttmacher Institute, which tracks reproductive rights laws and advocates in favor of abortion access. Human rights groups and global leaders warned Friday that the U.S. Supreme Court's decision could have wide-reaching consequences for reproductive rights worldwide by emboldening anti-abortion right activists in other countries, which is something that's, I don't think, getting talked about enough. There is a lot of third and second world countries that are coming up in the world, and they look at America as kind of the shining light, the beacon on the hill, whatever you want to say. And if we criminalize abortion and they say, well, U.S. is the gold standard, so maybe we should too. That's not a good precedent to set. We should be looked at as what could be, what might be, if you just give in to hope and progress and equality. That's what America was to me growing up. But the last, 20 years, it looks like a dystopian third world country. Like I said on my last episode, we really are a third world country wearing first world clothing. It's disgusting. But for all that's merciful in the heavens, let's stop talking about abortion and talk about the fucking bombshell that Cassidy Hutchinson did the other day to the January 6 hearings. Cassidy Hutchinson, a top aide to former White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, delivered the most damning testimony to date in the January 6th hearings, tying former President Donald Trump directly to the attack and providing potential evidence if criminal charges are pursued. And for the love of God, we have got to go after him, pursue criminal charges. Please, let's get some good news to come out in 2022. She described multiple incidents of Trump's rage, including reportedly trying to seize the wheel and lunged at his former security detail when the Secret Service would not drive him to join protesters at the Capitol. She detailed Trump's unwillingness to call off the crowds despite knowing some were armed and violence was expected. She also testified that Meadows sought a pardon after the attack on the Capitol, and that then White House counsel Pat Cipollone, I don't know how to say that last name. He looks like it's Italian. Pat Cipollone warned that Trump and aides could be charged with every crime imaginable if Trump joined protesters at the Capitol. Hutchinson was a trusted aide to Meadows. Her proximity to the Chief of Staff and access to the inner workings of the West Wing allowed her to share her extraordinary view into the events leading up to and on January 6th, including closed-door conversations and paper trails. So now we're going to talk bombshell after bombshell here. So this is at the Ellipse on January 6th. Trump was aware his supporters had weapons and wore body armor when he directed them to march to the Capitol following his Save America rally, Hutchinson said. I was in the vicinity of a conversation where I overheard the president say something to the effect of, I don't fucking care that they have weapons. They're not here to hurt me. Take the mags away, mags meaning metal detectors. Let the people in. They can march to the Capitol from here, she testified. Hutchinson testified that Tony Ornato, Trump's then Deputy Chief of Staff and Secret Service agent, recounted how the former president lunged at his Chief of Security, Bobby Engel, while in the presidential limo, when Engel refused to drive him to the Capitol. The president said something to the effect of, I'm the fucking president, take me up to the Capitol now. When Engel refused, telling him it wasn't safe, Trump reached up toward the front of the vehicle to grab at the steering wheel. Mr. Trump then used his free hand to lunge towards Bobby Engel, and when Mr. Ornato had recounted the story to me, he had motioned towards his clavicle. Engel was in the room and didn't refute Ornato's version of the story, she added. Inside the White House's prior knowledge of the January 6th attack, Hutchinson testified that on the evening of January 2nd, 2021, following a meeting with Trump's attorney Rudy Giuliani and Meadows, Giuliani asked her, Cass, are you excited for the 6th? It's going to be a great day. He then told her, we're going to the Capitol on January 6th. It's going to be great. The president is going to be there. He's going to look powerful. He's going to be with the members. He's going to be with the senators. Hutchinson said she later asked Meadows about what Giuliani meant, and Meadows told her things might get real bad on January 6th. Warnings from top national security officials. National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien called Meadows on January 4th to warn him about potential violence on the Hill on January 6th. Meadows later met with Ornato, who mentioned the potential of protesters bringing weapons to the Save America rally on the Ellipse and later to the Capitol. Ornato mentioned knives, guns, tear gas, spears, among other weapons, she added. Former Director of National Intelligence John Ratcliffe made clear he worried Trump's post-election claims of fraud could spiral out of control and potentially be dangerous, either for our democracy or with the way things were going for the 6th, she added. White House counsel worried about criminal activity. The White House counsel repeatedly warned the president and his team he was concerned they would be charged with every crime imaginable if they directed Trump supporters to the Capitol following his January 6th speech on the Ellipse. On January 3rd, Mr. Cipollone approached me knowing that Meadows had raised the prospect of going up to the Capitol on January 6th, Hutchinson testified. Cipollone told her, per Hutchinson, we need to make sure that this doesn't happen. This would be legally a terrible idea for us. Yeah, just us, not the people or the country. On January 6th, before Trump and his top aides, including Hutchinson, walked out to the Ellipse for his speech, Cipollone said something to the effect of, please make sure we don't go up to the Capitol. Keep in touch with me. We're going to get charged with every crime imaginable if we make that movement happen, she recounted. During the attack, on January 6th, immediately after the rioters breached the Capitol, Hutchinson said Cipollone marched to Meadows' office and told him, we need to go down and see the president now. And Mark looked up at him and said, he doesn't want to do anything, Pat. In a previous taped deposition, Hutchinson detailed another exchange between Cipollone and Meadows, in which Cipollone told Trump's then chief, we need to do something more. They're literally calling for the Vice President to be fucking hung. According to Hutchinson, Meadows replied, you heard Trump. He thinks Mike deserves it. He doesn't think they're doing anything wrong. After the attack, former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo reached out to Meadows following the Capitol attack and informed him that Trump's cabinet secretaries were discussing invoking the 25th Amendment to remove the president from office. From what I understand, it was more of this is what I'm hearing. I want you to be aware of it, she said. Hutchinson also testified that both Meadows and Giuliani sought pardons related to January 6th. And lastly, pressure from Trump world. Committee Vice Chair Liz Cheney shared statements from witnesses suggesting that some within Trump's inner circle tried to intimidate them and pressure them to remain loyal to the former president before participating in the panel's investigation. Well, no shit. So that's pretty big deals, baby. That's a pretty big fucking deal. Not only did they plan it, they were encouraging it. Trump tried commandeering his vehicle and driving to the Capitol himself. He could care less that they were armed and were wearing body armor. He sure sounded like he could give a fuck if they killed Mike Pence. And yeah, it really sounds like, by a credible witness, that not only did they know about it, they planned it, they executed it, and they wanted it to go further. So, for the love of all that you hold dear to your heart when it comes to democracy and freedom and just America, you have got to pursue criminal charges against Trump, his family, and anyone else who basically has asked for pardons related to January 6th. There's a list of them. I think there's so far about 25 people that asked for pardons. They should not only be kicked out of any elected office, they should never be allowed to run again. And some of them should serve jail time, in my estimation. But what the fuck do I know? I'm just an American who has voted in every election since he was 18. But what the fuck do I know about democracy? Ugh. But anyway, let's move on to something I kind of talked about the last few podcasts about how really, in my opinion right now, I feel like the baby boomers and a lot of Gen X have already kind of fucked us up pretty good. And the millennials are not the saviors that I thought my generation would be. We seem to be 60-40 in the right headspace, but that's still too many fuckers that still believe in the boomer kind of reality and some of their ideologies about what America means. Basically, America to them is a white America Christian. And I don't negotiate with terrorists. But Generation Z, they are the ones that are going to have to save us from ourselves. And I have a pretty good article here that's going to go into in depth there what I'm talking about. So let's go ahead and get that started. They crave work-life balance and mental health support. They dread getting stuck in a dull job. And they fault today's decision makers for downplaying the issues that move them, like school shootings and racism. Meet Generation Z. Gen Zers, those born between 97 and 2012, will soon be the biggest U.S. voting cohort, and they vote in record numbers. Plus, they'll make up 27% of the workforce in 3 years per the World Economic Forum. And by the way, when they say that they are the largest voting cohort, half of the youth voted in 2020, an 11-point increase from 2016. That's amazing. That's amazing. 50% of all young people 18 to 29 voted in 2020, and you're only going to see more and more of them vote during the midterms in 2024. So thank Christ. This is what I'm talking about. They are our saviors, for better or worse. This report from the Walton Family Foundation and Murmuration, an educational inequality nonprofit founded by Emma Bloomberg, paints a picture of a generation that prizes family and well-being over money-making, isn't afraid to job hop, and sees civic participation as vital to advancing their values. They have low expectations that the government, corporations, and other institutions will prioritize them or take their needs into consideration. They are less conservative than previous generations and take a more progressive stance on issues like social justice and climate change. And see, their social justice stuff sometimes makes everyone hate them, which, let's face facts, they kind of deserve it. Not all of their social justice stuff, of course, but, like the Latin X things and the gender things and the pronouns things and all that nonsense. That's the shit that's going to hold them back. But as they mature, that stuff will stay always with the young or fizzle out. So I don't think it's that big of a deal. And they see standing up for the voiceless as central to their identity more than any other generation in America. Fucking hear, hear. Like other young people before them, Gen Zers are down on how their elders are running their schools and workplaces. But unlike their predecessors, they are primarily focused on flexibility, personalization, and emotional support. Gen Z wants to feel connected to issues that they care about, says Romy Drucker, director of the Walton Family Foundation's education program. They want a sense of purpose in their work, and when it comes to school, they don't feel like their education is preparing them for the kind of future they want to have. And I would add that I had the same thought process. But it's not only that the education is not preparing us for the kind of future that I want, but they're also not preparing you for what the actual real world is like. To better serve them, educators need to find more experiential, immersive ways to connect. Members of Gen Z talk openly about not wanting to follow the path of their parents and grandparents, working to exhaustion, little time for family and individual pursuits, pledging loyalty to one job or an industry, etc. This gives them motivation to challenge tired corporate policies and redefine work-life harmony. Also, they are a boon to this current union surge, which God bless them again. Gen Zs are different professionally. They spend an average of only 2 years and 3 months at any given job. Compare that to 2 years and 9 months for millennials, 5 years and 2 months for Gen Xers, and 8 years and 3 months for baby boomers. Gen Zers are different politically. Unlike prior generations, Gen Z has not experienced a moment when America was united. Gen Zs are different demographically. They are the most racially and ethnically diverse cohort in U.S. history, per the Pew Research Center. 52% are non-Hispanic white, compared with 61% of millennials when they were the same age range. They are different in the midst of a mental health crisis. Compared with other generations, Gen Zers are about twice as likely, 42% to 23%, to say they experience depression and feelings of hopelessness. And they're 3 times as likely to say they've considered self-harm or suicide. By the time they were ready for school, red alert lockdown drills and school shootings were expected, and soon they would see too many members of their community lose battles to opioids and depression. And I just want to talk really quickly about the politically point here, how Gen Z is different. They have not experienced a moment when America was united. That's true. We haven't been united since, I would say, since 2002, 2003. Once that warm glow of 9/11 patriotism rusted and you could see what it really was. All of it was lies, lies, lies. They just wanted to look at your shit without getting approvals. They wanted to bomb as many brown Muslims as they could. And that's the rise of the evangelicals over the Republican Party. And how many fucking economy crashes have we had since the 2000s? How many bailouts? I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on and on and on. And so it's only been getting worse. And so, yes, I remember the 90s and like a year after 9/11 as being the last time that we were united, more often than not, as a country. But let's continue with the story here. At the cusp of the baby boom Gen X transition, kids were so career-focused that fully 40% of the 1986 Yale graduating class applied to work at a single company, the investment banking firm First Boston. Jesus. Gen Z will have an outsized influence on the future of the nation and society more broadly. Evidence includes the pressure they are putting on employers and how they are taking to the streets to protest gun violence or promote reproductive health. With midterm elections on the horizon, this is a critical moment to be a better understanding youth. The big message from young people is, please listen. We have good ideas about what makes us feel excited, what unlocks our love of learning, and what we're passionate about. And I would also add that it's not one-sided, because yes, nobody wants a teenager or someone under the age of 25 telling them what they should or should not do. But I will say that, and I'm surprised this article doesn't go into it, that the younger millennials and pretty much all of Gen Z are the most empathetic and compassionate people and knowledgeable. So when you do see a 21-year-old talking to a 71-year-old about things how they should be, and the 71-year-old's pushing back like, oh, you're too young to tell me what to do, I have seen more often than not the 21-year-old tell the 71-year-old, yes, but what is going to help me and make me happy or make me healthier is going to make you happier and healthier. It's kind of one size fits all here. And everyone can agree that the current state of the country is not good. And really, the millennials and the Gen Zers are the only ones putting forward actual plans that are going to help not just themselves, but everyone, including the fucking idiots who are old as fuck that got us in this fucking mess to begin with in the first place. So, what the fuck do I know? I only work with a bunch of youth and get into a lot of conversations about them, and I am constantly surprised at how well adjusted and well put together this younger generation is, just compared to the previous generation, myself. I mean, some of these kids at 19, 20, 21 are more mature and more intelligent than anyone I know that's in their mid-30s and 40s. And really, they're more intelligent and knowledgeable than all the baby boomers that I've ever met. But again, I don't want to be an ageist here, but I just called it like I sees it. But with that, I think we are finally done with the politics. Thank Christ. So let's talk about that fucking Mariners-Angels brawl that happened the other day. I did not think that I would dislike a team in our division more than the Houston Astros. Because, you know, they cheated for the World Series ring. And ever since that World Series, the life has just been getting worse and worse and worse. Trump, COVID, Roe v. Wade getting overturned. Do I blame the Houston Astros cheating scandal for all of this? Not really, but when you start connecting the dots. But we have a new contender for the most cuntiest team in baseball, and that is the Los Angeles Angels. Now, for those of you that are not sports fans, the Seattle Mariners and the Angels of Anaheim, or Los Angeles Angels, whatever they're calling themselves these days, they play each other a lot through the year because they are in the same division. I have never really seen them as our main rival in the division. I always have seen Oakland or Houston or Texas as our main rival, with Angels always bringing up the rear. But after that last series, I can now say, fuck the Angels, fuck their head coach, and as much as I like you, Mike Trout, you're a little emo pussy bitch. So what happened? Well, before the big brawl the night before, in the ninth inning, we were going for the win, and we were facing one of the best hitters in recent history when it comes to baseball. Mike Trout is arguably one of the best players playing, and really one of the best players in the league in the last 20-something years, in my opinion, and I think most baseball fans' opinion as well. He has been slaughtering us all year. I think he single-handedly swept us in the previous series we faced against the Angels about 2 weeks ago. But anyway, I digress. We were up by 1 run in the ninth inning. We had our best reliever out there, and the reliever, Erik Swanson, he let the pitch go a little wild, and it did almost hit Mike Trout in the head. Obviously, it was a mistake. It was an accident. He didn't try throwing at him. Erik Swanson, I don't think, has had any batters this year, and we don't have that reputation. So anyway, Mike Trout was a little jibber-jabbering a little bit, and then he grounded out, and we ended up winning the game. After the game, Mike Trout went to the press and said that if you want to hit me in the ribs or the leg, but don't throw me up in the head, which makes sense, but we weren't trying to hit you, Mike. I think it's pretty evident. If you look at the full year, the Mariners have actually been hit, I think, the second most in the entire league. I mean, Ty France, I think, has led baseball the last 2 or 3 years in getting hit by pitches. So I don't buy the fact that we were looking for a fight or trying to intentionally hit Trout with a ball, because that's not our team. That just isn't what happened. So the day after that, the Angels did something a little bit strange. They sent out their pre-lineups with a pitcher, but then when the game started, they had a completely different new pitcher on the mound. And then it became pretty evident that the reason they did the switch was to conceal the secret that they actually wanted to fight. They wanted to start a brawl. So this pitcher, who was not on the lineup card, was really put in the first inning to throw at our best hitter, which he did do. He threw at Julio Rodriguez, the phenom rookie that God I hope wins Rookie of the Year, but he missed. The pitcher missed Julio. But obviously, when you look at the Mike Trout almost getting hit and Julio Rodriguez almost getting hit, you can really tell who's being thrown at on purpose. So I think warnings were issued, and then the next inning, Jesse Winker got hit in the ass on purpose, yelled at the coach, yelled at the umpire, yelled at the pitcher, and then looked at the dugout where the Angels have an interim manager, Phil Nevin, who Phil Nevin's cunt ass has a reputation as being a cunt. He is. He's a bully. He's a whiner. He's a dirty fighter. Really, he's a cunty cocksucker. And he got promoted to a head coach after the Angels fired their head coach earlier in the season. Phil Nevin had a reputation as a player, and now he has a reputation as a manager. So Winker started yelling at the dugout, and that's when all hell broke loose. And as a fan, I'm all for sports brawls. I love it. But holy shit, I haven't seen a brawl like this in probably a decade. So some fans started cheering, "Let's go Angels," as the fight was happening. And Jesse Winker was walking around the field flipping off all of the fans. I love it. I love it. And to make matters even better is after the game, there was this big viral moment where people were able to find where the Mariners were staying at a hotel, and they sent Jesse Winker pizza as a thank you for the fight and the flipping off the bird, because they were in the right. So you would have thought, okay, well, obviously Jesse Winker's going to have to get suspended, but primarily it's going to be all the Angels. Well, that's not what happened. Now, the Angels have a lot more players and coaches suspended than the Mariners. The Mariners only have 3 compared to 9 people on the Angels roster, including coaches, that got suspended because of it. So even Major League Baseball is saying by their actions here that it was the Angels' fault. So the Mariners had Jesse Winker suspended 7 games, J.P. Crawford 5 games, and Julio Rodriguez for 2. And of course, Julio's already come out saying, I didn't throw a punch. They threw at me. I didn't hit anybody. And so all the Mariners are going to fight the suspensions, and I would imagine that Crawford and Julio would get their suspensions either completely revoked or down to 1 or 2 games. Winker, on the other hand, I think he's going to have to serve the full 7 for the flipping the bird to the fans. But listen to the shit that the Angels are dealing with here. So their manager, Phil Nevin, that cocksucker, he was suspended 10 games, rightly so. Their starting third baseman, Anthony Rendon, was suspended 5 games. Their assistant pitching coach, Dom Chidi, was suspended 5 games. And they had 3 pitchers, Andrew Wantz, Ryan Tepera, and Raisel Iglesias, were suspended 2 games and 3 games for Wantz, respectively. And then they had their bench coach, Ray Montgomery, and their interpreter, Manny Del Campo, both suspended 2 games, and their catching coach, Bill Hasselman, for 1 game. So it's not a good sign when not just one, but most of your coaching staff and assistants get suspended. So fuck the Angels. I hope baseball comes down hard on that whole organization for that bullshit bunk-ass move. And credit to Jesse Winker for not putting up with that shit and putting the money where his mouth is. Because he was jawing and then he was throwing haymakers, baby. So was, I think it was Justin Upton, we have Justin Upton now. And he didn't get suspended, even though he was swinging at his former team because he played for the Angels before he came over here. So, yeah, it was a pretty wild thing to see. If you haven't seen it, it's been all over Major League Baseball and, of course, Twitter and really any social media. So if you want to check out the fight, go to YouTube, check it out. And, yeah, the Angels, pretty pussy-ass organization. So fuck them. I hope Seattle at least beats them in the standings this year. We're still as shitty and injured and inept as any of the Mariners team in recent history. But last I checked, we're only 6 games under 500. So, Christ. But anyway, with that, let's stop talking about the news and let's talk about some TV shows and movies, and then we can move to wrap up this mofo. So, like I previously said, I'm on a staycation this week, and because I was in such a dark pit of despair for about 3 days, I finished Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I binge-watched The Umbrella Academy. Well, at least binge-watched, to me, is watching the whole season in... Did I finish it? Yeah, I finished it Sunday. So, and I gotta tell you, Obi-Wan Kenobi... I got to give, as a whole, the series, I give it a C-. It was pretty lackluster the majority of the time. They really did not introduce anything cool besides, of course, that epic fucking awesome fight scene the last episode. But I feel like it could have been an 1.5-hour movie, and it would have been a pretty enjoyable movie. But in this day of streaming, Disney's not going to release a roughly 2-hour Obi-Wan Kenobi movie. Instead, I think they can get their money's worth by releasing, what was it, 6 episodes. And so you have a 1.5 hour worth of an idea, and you stretch it out across 5 hours, basically. And so that's why, in my opinion at least, the series really dragged and was slow, and all of these, the side characters, the new characters, all of their plot lines were pretty boring and pretty stupid. The entire plot line that involving what was that character's name, Reva, third sister, I mean, she had a decent backstory, but that was it. So her whole idea, spoiler if you haven't finished Obi-Wan Kenobi, was to join the dark side, pretend she wasn't a youngling, and then slowly work her way up until the highest point of the Grand Inquisitor, and then she would creep up and stab Darth Vader from behind. I mean, that's such a weak plot. Everyone that knows Vader knows that he's Force sensitive. So obviously he knows everything. And of course he told her that. Which, again, why didn't he just kill her? That would have been a cool ending to a mediocre character. But instead, they had to let her get stabbed through with the lightsaber. And yet, again, somehow make an appearance in the last episode just to have, a PG-rated closure to her stupid character arc. It was stupid. It was pointless. I do like the little girl actress that played Leia. She was excellent. And, of course, Ewan McGregor was excellent. And I understand they made a big deal about Hayden Christensen coming back, but he was only in, the flashback and that last battle scene when when that mask got crushed open. And he really I mean, he fucked Vader up. And all Obi-Wan had to do was once Vader said, you started to kill Anakin, but I finished the job, or whatever. He said, basically, he said, it wasn't you, it was me that killed Anakin Skywalker. And then Obi-Wan said that my friend is truly dead. That's when, if I was Obi-Wan, I would have just cut off Vader's head with the lightsaber. You would have saved Alderaan, baby. You would have saved millions of lives. So fuck you, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You doomed millions. But as a whole, I give it a C-. It just wasn't enough for a 6-episode series. If they made it maybe 3 episodes and maybe had the episodes be about 50 minutes to an hour, I think maybe it would have been better just to cut out the fat. But I still would have enjoyed maybe an hour and a half to 2 hour movie. That would have been pretty good. And I would have said probably that would have been the best live action Star Wars movie of my lifetime over Rogue One, which I still will say Rogue One is the best live action Star Wars story of any kind that I have gotten in my lifetime. So, but the Umbrella Academy truly saved me when I was really just like black tar goo, getting high in the afternoon, drinking way too much coffee, Uber eating, and just growing moss on the couch because I just was not in a good headspace. Very depressed, very angry. I was having violent thoughts, anxious thoughts. Nothing to be worried about in that vein. At least I did have a lot of stand-up comedy and some really good podcasts to get me through it. And the Umbrella Academy was the icing on the cake. Now, I will say something that maybe is going to be a hot take for some. I don't know why it would be. I think it's fairly obvious that the 3rd season is the worst season of the Umbrella Academy. And it's not even close. But it was still pretty damn entertaining. Pretty entertaining. I liked the plot. I liked the new characters. Although some of the decisions were really poorly written. Some of the character developments were stupid. Although I will say, what's her name's character arc? Let me see. What's that actress's name? Emmy Raver Lampman, who plays Allison, you know, I heard a rumor superpower, which is the greatest superpower on the show. How cool would that be? I mean, if I had her superpower, I would rule the world. But I'd be a good dictator. I'd be a empathetic, compassionate dictator. But anyway, I liked her storyline. Her whole character arc was amazing this season. I did not see it coming. I was surprised, and I love it when that happens. But mostly all the other plot lines were lame as fuck. I do have to commend how the show handled Elliot Page is now Elliot Page. I forget what he used to go by. Was it Emma Page? I don't know. You know, whatever she was in Juno. But now she is now a he, and he changed his name to Elliot Page. And I didn't really think twice about that change while watching the show. But then the show leaned into it. And at first I thought, oh God, do I have to sit through some really over-the-top elitist spiel, but whatever. I did have that feeling for a couple seconds, but then thankfully it passed and I got to watch the show, and I can really say I commend Umbrella Academy for how they handled it. It made sense for Elliot's character, and of course you're watching it through Elliot, obviously. So now Vanya is now Victor, and all of the characters addressed it. It wasn't a big deal. It seemed very realistic to me. That would be what a loving friend or family would do. There was questions, of course, confusion, but they said, who cares? If he's happy, that's all that matters. She, he, who the fuck cares? As long as he is still one of us, who gives a fuck, you know? And that was cool, and I liked that. As a whole, though, I still will hold on that this is the worst season, but still pretty good. If you were a fan of the series, of course, keep watching it. You're going to enjoy it still. They ended on a very cool cliffhanger, so I cannot wait for season 4. Hopefully it doesn't take 2 fucking years like we had to wait the last time. And yeah, with that, I think we can wrap up the TV shows. I'm trying to think if I've watched any movies. I did watch a lot of stand-up comedy, and I will call out Paul Verzi's new special on Netflix is really good. I did finally start that Norwegian movie, The Worst Person in the World. I didn't finish it yet. I watched the first half of it, and I am loving it. Loving it. I've never heard of the actress, of course, that plays the main character, but she is smoking hot, and she encompasses in her character everything that I dislike about white American women. It's all her. It's that character. But it's excellent so far, and I can't wait to finish it and see how it ends. And with that, I think we can close this mofo out. So take it sleazy, Don't do anything I wouldn't do. Treat others as you want to be treated, and don't be a judgmental cunt. And like I have been going on and on and on about in this podcast, the last few days I was in a black hole of shiteness. But because I was smoking copious amounts of marijuana, I was having a lot of me time when I was meditating about, anything to do with what's happening in the world with divisiveness and abortion and the right versus left and what's real Christians versus this made-up American Christian, all that nonsense. And I started talking about, well, why am I concerned? Why am I going through this? Blah, 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 blah. And I started going down this rabbit hole, and I finally discovered, people, my complete gender balance equation, if that makes any sense. I finally figured what I am. Why I tend to think the way I think, why I have these certain ideologies that I have, why I'm willing to flip on a dime. Is that the saying? Flip on a dime? I can change my opinion at the drop of a hat. God, I have all these stupid one-liners that are from like my grandparents' generation, and I just can't shake them, and I think I'm forgetting them, and I'm combining them into just nonsense. But anyway, my point being, I'm open to changing my mind if presented new evidence that makes sense and it's supported by experts. And I thought, well, why do I think the way I think, basically? Is it because I'm a white man who's been thrown so many curveballs in the last 15 years with the Me Too movement, with the Black Lives Matter movement, with all these movements, and really being able to see what it's like for women in the dating scene, what's it like to be a single mother out here, just the trials and tribulations that a young white man doesn't really ever think or question because he's never had time or had the thought to do it or the maturity to do it. So who knows? So I broke down my gender balance equation. I think I'm pretty confident that I'm 70% masculine, 20% feminine, 5% big gay, and 5% retarded. So with that, we are finally done, and I feel so happy that I can close that suspicion I had about not really knowing how my gender was balanced, and now I know. 70% masculine, 20% feminine, 5% big gay, and 5% retarded. I challenge you all to do the same. Be real, be vulnerable, be honest with yourself, and I think you will find maybe some outrageous results, but if handled with maturity, it'll lead through some positive growth. I am just spewing nonsense. That's why I'm 5% retarded. All right, later, peeps.